afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. As Veena mentioned, Accelerating Corporate ESG Adoption in the Middle East, Innovation and Strategic Alignment for Sustainable Growth. Thank you so much for our esteemed panelists and all the audience for joining us. We're still being joined by others, but I think we should keep moving on. All right, so I'll begin with introducing myself. My name is 𝐀𝐜𝐜𝐜𝐞𝐜𝐜 Andrabi. I am the Director of Business at Updapt, an ESG tech company, and I'm delighted to be moderating this important discussion today. As we all know, ESG is no longer just a compliance requirement. It's becoming a fundamental part of business strategy, shaping investment decisions, regulatory frameworks, and even for long-term corporate success as well. Today, we have an incredible panel of industry experts who bring diverse insights on how organizations in the Middle East can accelerate ESG adoption, leverage innovation, and strategically align their sustainability goals for sustainability growth. All right, so let me begin with introducing our panelists. We have Ms. Lisa Knudsen, Head of ESG at Rackbank, bringing expertise in sustainability, finance, and stakeholder management with a master's in accounting and finance from Copenhagen Business School, and she drives ESG strategies and sustainability, sustainable business practices with a strong analytical approach. Welcome, Lisa. Then we have Mr. Hussein Saifuddin, Head of ICT at Emerald, with 19 plus years of experience in driving technological innovation in the facilities management sector. He specializes in digital transformation, cybersecurity, and operational efficiency, leading Emerald's award-winning technology initiatives. Welcome, Mr. Hussein.
Thank you.
Then we have Mr. Naif Al-Maliki, an experienced environmental health and safety manager with expertise across maritime, industrial, and power sectors. A graduate from Warsaw Maritime Academy with an MSc in Occupational Health and Safety from the University of Hull. He has led sustainability reporting initiatives and is developing an annual reporting system from Saudi Arabia. Welcome, Mr. Naif.
Thank you.
Also, we were also supposed to be joined by Ms. Muna Al-Nahdi, Director of Sustainability and Consultancy at Farnic, but unfortunately, she just informed some time back that she has a personal emergency and hence won't be able to join us today. But definitely she'll be with us in the upcoming webinars. So thank you, esteemed panelists, for joining us. Before we, begin our discussion, I would like to request all our esteemed panelists to keep their cameras on. This will help more engaging and interactive experience for our audience as we dwell into today's discussion. So I think let's begin with the panel discussion. I'll start with you, Lisa, regarding the corporate accountability and ESG, balancing efficiency and oversight. Lisa, as you know, one of the biggest challenges companies face is ensuring that ESG commitments translate into real action at the leadership level. So how can corporate boards and leadership teams be held accountable for ESG outcomes without creating a bureaucratic, inefficiencies?
Thank you, Vikar, and thank you for inviting me to the panel today. It's a quite interesting but also complex question that you're asking, right? Because in order for us to create accountability, you need to distribute some roles and responsibilities across the organization. And that means that you really need that both top down but also bottom up approach. So you need some dedicated resources such as a ESG team, and they really need to be change agents and leading a transformation in the organization. But you also need to have management with you. So while I think all believe that we would want to jump some of the bureaucratic inefficiencies that we're seeing somewhere, you do need that to have management with you. And I think it's very important because when we're speaking about sustainability, we need to create it on a long-term scale, and you need to integrate it into the existing business strategy. So to connect those dots, you really need to ensure that the whole organization is following you. And to do that and to start your ESG integration, you're going to have to sort of almost take the temperature on where are you today? So what does the landscape look like in your current state? And you're going to have to be able to track that and measure that. So you need to set some targets, some goals, and that leads back to data. and reporting, data and reporting, you almost start to create that bureaucracy. But I think, if I can keep it short, if you want to aim at not creating too many obstacles for yourself and your organization, maybe aim for empowerment for your ESG team rather than strictly being compliant with either regulation or even your own set of guidelines and your long-term strategy. Empower your team and keep them innovative and transformative. That's the sweet spot, I think.
That's a great perspective, Lisa. Absolutely, we agree with you. I believe accountability, without agility can even slow down the real progress. Clearly, organizations would need strong governance frameworks, but also the flexibility to act quickly, as you rightly mentioned. So here I come because you mentioned regarding data and regarding the use of probably technology for reporting. I'll switch on to Hussein. Hussein, as someone at the intersection of technology and sustainability, so why is technology critical to ESG success from your perspective?
Sure. So I think thank you, Lisa, for making my life easier by telling quite a bit of things already. I mean, Syed, I think technology, why it is important, because see, it's not for an ESG. I believe it's for every processes. Technology is very much required, because if you do not have a integrated processes, and then you do not have an integrated technology, then none of them will work. And this is where I believe any platform like an ESG platform helps you to gauge that knowledge, brings that insight together. And on the same time, because the data which we are talking is not some small numbers, it's the volume, it's a large volume of data which we are actually calculating and putting in, trying to make sense out of it. Some do have a very good certifications, data scientists and things like that, and they can do quite a bit sense out of it. But some who may not have that data knowledge, these platforms then actually help them to correlate all the data which they collected and then try to make sense out of it. And I'll give you a classic example which I liked, one of the reports which we have it in this platform, and that's where the TechSphere comes into the picture of Emerald, where some people do talk about numbers from the millions, but some people, if you try to explain, oh, you have actually, because of the carbon emission, because of this and that, you have burned this many trees, because the person can relate the trees rather than, the what is carbon emission, and then he goes into a chat GPT and looks for it. It's much more difficult to explain. Whereas if a data gives you an insight and makes a language common to everyone, that's where I believe these platforms needs to help more and more to the future generation. And the collection is very much important, and but on the same time how we translate that information is very important. Just to add on in terms of how Emerald does it for the ESG platform, and how ESG studies and strategy, and how do we challenge internally to ourselves, because in the past it was always been like, all right, we are doing great job, we are doing great job, we are doing great job, and it's like you're just evaluating yourself. Whereas now with these platform, with these industry standards, it allows us to benchmark ourselves with the worldwide market, how others are doing, what others are actually taking it right, and we might need to learn from them. So it's not about only checking your own self and collecting your own data. It's more of checking what industry practices are, what others are doing. And this is where I believe technology takes a pivotal role. From our other side of technology, how we interlink with ESG, because the data for ESG is not only coming from one place. So this is another area where I believe the success comes in. As you as asked, the success mainly comes when you connect these silo data points into one platform, on one report, whatever you call it. But in the end, the end result has to be that it's that consolidated, that it's easy to understand, it's easy to evaluate and take actions from that insight. And that's where I believe technology takes a vital role. I can keep going on, Mike, but I think that gives you a
Absolutely.
summary of what exactly and where technology helps to ESG.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Hussein. In fact, technology enables companies to track, measure, and optimize ESG initiatives in ways that were impossible before, as you clearly mentioned. Giving them real time, examples with the help of how many trees were burned rather than how many carbon emissions were generated. All right, since we're talking about leadership and Lisa mentioned about bureaucracy, and now I'd like to jump on to Mr. Naive, about incentivizing the ESG leadership performance. So Naif, meaningful ESG progress starts at the top, as we believe, as Lisa clearly mentioned. So leadership's buy-in is very crucial, but financial incentives often drive the behavior. As per you, how should the business design ESG performance incentives for leadership to drive a meaningful change? Does that make sense?
So, uh, so first of all, I thank you for inviting me, and greetings to all the
My
panelists.
pleasure.
I'm really honored to join you all. Um, so, uh, let's agree that the environmental activism and green economy activism, renewable energy activism has done a lot of work that made the ethical case for CEOs and executives to do the right thing with regard to ESG. A lot of CEOs in our region, at least, are personally committed to implementing the various ESG initiatives for the good of these initiatives in themselves without any additional outside interference. So that's the ethical case. I think is a lot of work has been done. The media has done great, fantastic job on that arena. The second thing I believe is also having the clear KPIs, the old acronym SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound, really makes it more uh, clear and attainable for the CEOs to put action plans in place to ensure that these commitments are delivered in the agreed period of time. And if and where there are obstacles, they take the right steps to modify their action plans or look for alternative ways to achieve those commitments. In terms of financial incentives, I don't know. I think if there is a compliance element to ESG in terms of meeting regulatory requirements, then I believe there is always a good incentive. It's good to incentivize them there. But I really believe these ESG or things related to ESG are should be core values, and those tends not to be rewarded financially. They just should be. It's just the right thing and doing it for what it's for its value rather than because of financial incentives, etc.
That's an interesting perspective, and I think, of course, tying ESG metrics to executive compensation ensures that sustainability isn't just an aspiration, but of course, as you mentioned, it's also a key performance indicator and should be, mandatory for everybody to follow, rather than just tying it to the incentives. So, thank you so much for commenting on that. So here I'll come back to Lisa again, with respect to easy communication and greenwashing concerns that we are seeing around the region. So, Lisa, with the increasing scrutiny over greenwashing, businesses must be more transparent than ever. How should companies structure their ESG communications to maintain credibility? Is Lisa still with us?
I think he drop off, Vakar. I think some network issues.
All right, no problem. Then I think we can come back to Lisa with that question. But here I'd like to jump on to Naif once again before I go to Hussein. So, regarding the learning from global ESG regulations and while staying regionally relevant. So, Naif, the Middle East, along with Saudi Arabia, of course, is adopting ESG frameworks inspired by global standards. So, what lessons can businesses learn from global ESG regulations while ensuring solutions remain practical for the region, especially in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think first, regional frameworks that aspire to meet the aspirations and values and priorities of the region are important rather than fully adopting the international standards. So a regional framework would really uh, be more relevant to the businesses and the private sector and public sector as well to meet its commitments. One of the issues that or lessons that needs to be learned is the buy-in from all stakeholders in the private and public sectors. I think one of the issues that were faced generally in other parts of the world where ESG was attempted was that the role of there wasn't much alignment between the proponents of ESG and sustainability measures and the business sector and the executives and leaderships in those areas. So alignment is very much in demand, and patience. Things don't change overnight, and demanding or taking an alarmist position and demanding immediate or putting unpractical or impractical time lines is counterproductive. So these are the things that I would like to see mitigated when we better improve or better implement sustainability framework initiatives, is to ensure that we have better alignment with the private sector and the public sector, ensure that there are reasonable and practical timelines for achieving these objectives and commitments, and ensuring that more cooperation with the local businesses to develop a regional framework.
Absolutely,
So,
Naif. I think that's a key takeaway. Yeah, sorry, Lisa, we lost you in the middle. No problem. I think
yes,
I'll
I
jump
had a
back to you again.
technical glitch. I'm so sorry about that, but I'm back.
No problem. Technology is always like that, and hence, we always dependent on technology. So I just meant, Naif was just explaining about, what learnings we can have from global ESG regulation while staying, regionally relevant. So I think, Naif, that's the key takeaway that you mentioned. Local adoption of of global best practices ensures sustainability is both effective and culturally relevant. And of course, we need to have patience with the change management, as you mentioned very correctly. So I'll come back to Lisa. Lisa, again, a question regarding ESG communication and greenwashing concerns that is being going around in the region. So, Lisa, with increasing scrutiny over greenwashing, businesses must be more transparent than ever, as we all know. So, how should companies structure their ESG communications to maintain credibility? What's your view on that?
That is an extremely important topic. And I actually want to go back to what Hussein said in the first question here, because he was talking about that it will be hard for a lot of people to relate back to, for instance, CO2 emissions. How much is a CO2 equivalent, etc. If we can turn that into how many trees or how many steaks or what a car costs, if we can transform it into something that has a clear and specific language that is universal, that is where you start off with your communication and how you actually avoid greenwashing. So in order to do that, one thing is looking at your language that you're using, but it also starts with awareness, education, and empowerment. So you really need to be in touch with your colleagues and your customers. Let them contribute into your sustainability goals and empower them to become part of this. So in order to reach that level of transparency, I think we of course need to report, and we need to do it on a regular basis, but don't be afraid to be humble and yet honest. Include both successes, but also the negative parts. But don't exaggerate it or make unsubstantiated claims. That's when greenwashing happens. But we also don't want to get on the other end of that scale. We don't want it to become green hushing. It's very important that we engage our stakeholders and that we face up to our own accountability and our surroundings and our stakeholders' accountability and what they expect of us. So we need to provide some consistency, some standards, and to have a data-driven approach where we can have some credibility and some accuracy in what we're actually claiming and what we're actually achieving and the impact that we actually have. I think that's what it comes down to, is for all of us, we want to achieve that impact and say, this is what we have done, and we should be able to communicate about it. So I think don't be too afraid about getting out there and putting it on your platforms. But I think with honesty and being humble, you get to go a long way.
Absolutely, Lisa. I think the key takeaway is that companies should back their sustainability claims, as you rightly mentioned, along with measurable data and independent verification as well. Because greenwashing is a reputational risk, as we all know, and that's something that organizations can't afford in present day. So thank you so much for your views on that. So I think here, because you mentioned Hussein's part, and he's been driving sustainability, along with tech hand in hand. So Hussein, because we all know Emerald has been at the forefront of integrating sustainability into its operations along with tech, and you've been doing it for a while now. Not being totally as a part of compliance. But we would like to, can you share some insights on how Emerald is leveraging technology to drive its ESG goals?
All right. I think in between it, there was some disconnect. But anyways, I understand what you're trying to achieve is how Emerald is driving and how the sustainability and tech is involved. I would like to touch base that side. So
Absolutely.
in Emerald, we actively leverage this thing, and there is a sayings which I like for my CEO always. He always says, Hussein, don't just buy the technology for the sake of technology. Just make sure that you're buying something, you are adopting something, or you are putting it to the business which is useful to everyone. So in that focus in the mind, we have always looked at energy efficiency, reduction in waste, reduction in environment friendly operations, and some of considering those points in mind, we have taken some actions which have given us a drastic outcome, and the impact was so high that we could publish it very well. So some of them I would like to add. One of them was the centralization of our command center, where we started monitoring the ESG, and we took this few years back, where this was being monitored earlier project based, and we moved out from a project based approach to an centralized approach, bring all the ESG elements into a one command center rather than having I mean, if I say it in a classic manner, having a TV on each project office showcasing what's the water, what's the leakage, what's the wastage, what things are at every project office. We have moved everything into the command center, and then it's been centrally monitored. And then the benchmarking, the comparison from one project to another project, from one client to another client, it was a drastic difference we have actually seen when we adopted this command center. Then the recently, with the help of our operations team, we have identified some client who actually participated with us with doing this cleaning robots. And you must have seen recently we are into drones as well to do a cleaning via drones. So those technologies, although they look like, oh, everybody is doing it, but we are using it just not from a perspective of tech. It's more to safeguard the manpower, safeguard employees. There are a lot of other elements which is being attached to that type of initiatives. Okay, people do compare robotic versus cleaning from a human. There are differences, and there are differences we are still learning. It's still new world for a lot of people, and we have learned from our mistakes, and we have improved drastically. So now those are no more POCs for us, no more proof of concept for us. It's more of a live examples running on our projects, and it has given us quite a bit of awards by doing and implementing such technologies for ESG. And again, this tech only comes when the requirement comes. So guys, please make sure that you need to think three times faster from an ESG perspective, and then only the tech can help it. Don't think that tech should come first and the motor should come next. No, it's always my ESG team, my ops team who actually come up with these ideas, discuss with the technology people like me, and then we collaborate together and come up with these ideas. Another classic ones which we have evaluated, it's not very much on an ESG side, but you must be heard about this robotic processes, which is for not only because, as I started earlier, the data. If you do not have a right data, if you have a garbage data, then your reports, your results, your impacts, everything is wrong. So and the consequences are too high if you go wrong. So this is why it's very important that you do it right first place. And ESG is not the place where you can just trial and run and error. No, it used to be first place right. So this is where we add up our robotic processes. We have taught quite a bit of our robots to do the data from a meter reading to and software, and add the meter reading data into a work order. So this process was being very human driven in the past, and we know human can do a lot more better things. So let us give this basic task to a robot. So we did that from a tech perspective. And recently, I mean, I don't have a case to tell, but we are now moving towards a more of an agentic AI, and this is nothing but a multiple robotic processes into one process. So rather than, again, this is where we are evaluating that. All right, we have built 7 robots. Now there is an electricity, there's a power, there's a this and that. Now, how do we reduce that from 7 to 1 or 5 to 1? And that's another internal processes which is under process. And these are the areas where mostly Emerald have been successful from a tech perspective. And I strongly believe from the respect of what we client has given us, and allow, because it's also important that somebody has to give us a trial, right, to use that tech and believe on us that our tech will work. So that relationship we were able to get in via our client, and I think the platform has given us a great results to consolidate them back into one place and given create results for an impact and actions which can be taken for the future. So I believe that's my answer to your question.
Great, great. I think that's a fantastic example, Hussein, how technology, real-time data, and automation can transform ESG execution for any organization, and for that matter, Emeril is taking a lead. And of course, kudos to you for driving those initiatives as well. And since we were also talking about, because a lot of vendors are associated and a lot of supply chain, we were talking about supply chain previously. Here, I wanted to go to Knife, because his experience in working with the conglomerate, huge experience in working with the conglomerate and having an immense supply chain, process involved. So, Knife, as you know, ESG risks don't stop at direct operations. We all know, they extend across the supply chain as well. So, what are the biggest ESG supply chain vulnerabilities in the Middle East, and how do you think companies can address them? You're on mute, Knife.
Yes, sir. So first, by avoiding scope 3, that's the first thing you do to avoid this problem from the source. No, but seriously, in the region, it's data, the gathering analysis of data by a lot of the companies or vendors in the supply chain is a major challenge in managing ESG with to include the scope 2, scope 3 in the ESG. That's why a lot of companies are actually only limiting themselves to scope 1 and scope 2 maximum, very hardly going all the way to do scope 3 because of the missing link of having data. The size of many companies in the region are just too small to scale such project as an ESG. It's the regulations on equipment and expiry of equipment is not. There is no such regulation, so you could have equipment that's been running for decades, which you can't even count its carbon footprint and find any literature on those equipment. So these are some of the challenges in combating this gap with the supply chain. Major companies are now resorting to third-party platforms to do that work on their behalf, and it's a daunting exercise to access the platform and provide the required data for major companies, and that is it's hard for large corporations. So you can imagine how it would be for medium-sized, small-size organizations. I think the solution is technology and adopting a simple, accessible, user-friendly platforms that will make the difference and will make the integration with all the points or the stakeholders in the supply chain better. Better in working in synergy to release ESG data and meet their commitments.
Indeed. So, also, you might agree, because how important do you think that engaging with your suppliers as a continuous process is important, rather than just giving a one-way requirement of compliance? Do you think that helps, engaging with your suppliers continuously for the ESG journey, and rather than making it as a one-way compliance requirement? Do you think that would solve this issue, or it can address the vulnerability?
Without doubt, engagement is always an add value activity, and communication can always resolve misunderstandings and issues, and can result in better information exchange, and alignment. But in certain cases, priorities can differ, and aligning those priorities is a challenge. For example, if one company is interested in a certain way of packaging the products before delivering it to their customers, uh, packaging of the in a certain way, in a sustainable way, may not be the priority of the supplier.
Right.
And in those cases, engagement and dialogue, perhaps cost sharing, can resolve the issue and meet everyone's commitment and targets and priorities.
Absolutely, and that's a key lesson. Companies, from my perspective, companies must engage with their suppliers in the ESG journey rather than seeing compliance as a one-way requirement from their side. So definitely tech would be something that would drive this as well. So now speaking about tech and data, Lisa, coming back to you again. Now, of course, since we're talking about how, the biggest, now I would like to know about the biggest ESG mega trends of the next decade that you see. So what do you see as the biggest ESG mega trend that will shape corporate sustainability in the region over the next decade? Your views on this?
There's so many. I don't know where to start, right? I
You
think
can go on.
I think if I can just compare a little bit, at least to some of the maybe more mature markets in sustainability from what we've seen in Europe and Asia, those markets have been going for quite a number of years on the sustainability agenda, and that means they have set some guidelines and showed some best practice. And I think what we're seeing in this region is that it's now moving at a lightning speed because we're able to learn from best practice, but still adapt it to our region and into the local ways of having a business. And I think that's where we have a strength. But that also means that we're going to see much more regulations and policies come into place. And it will require companies to really stay on top of their strategies and act and report accordingly, right? And that's going to lead us way back to what we have been speaking about and for a bit, and that is really technology and data. We're already seeing AI having a major role, I think, across so many different industries and data analytics in general. And sustainability is absolutely not far from that as well. We need to leverage technology to really monitor and improve our ESG performance. But while we do that, we still need to collect that data across the organization. And I think sometimes people tend to think that sustainability data is only about how much carbon emission we're emitting or, different metrics within E, S, and G. While in fact, it comes down to that all your data needs to be digitized. We might need your HR record. We might need your procurement log. We are going to need that data on our supply chain. And then we need to get smart enough to link it together and actually use it. So the things that are going to happen in our supply chains, I think is going to shape quite a bit around how we're going to see sustainability moving in this region. Because yes, climate change, climate resilience, it's not going away. But I do think we're going to see a bigger emphasis on social inclusion and equity in the GCC region. I think we're going to see more companies that are going to commit to becoming a more inclusive workplace and to ensure more fair treatment of all stakeholders. So I think that is where it's going to become quite interesting the next 1, 2, 3 years, where the region and the market is going to become its own. We're going to learn from the best, but we're going to adapt it into what we need to do and what we want to do. So that I'm waiting to see for that, how it unfolds.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's an exciting outlook, Lisa. Clearly the next decade on the couple of years will be, massively transformative for ESG in this region, and we hope for that, and we look for some real outcomes and applicability of everything that's on the papers. So, since we're talking about the future of ESG, and of course, I would like to have Hussein's point here. Hussein, looking ahead, what are your expectations from emerging technologies in the ESG and climate tech space?
I mean, see, emerging technologies, as I said in the beginning, when you know what you want, then you bring the technology accordingly. A lot of people do have this challenge, I think, from a perspective of what I want or what I wanted to process it from, because there are a lot in market. Some people, I mean, I think Lisa has touched base it. When you look at how the other countries are doing it, if you try to adopt the same thing over here, then you need to understand what is my dynamics be, I mean, available dynamics within the region. And UAE or GCC, I must say, we are very far ahead in the game of technology. I mean, we have, I mean, the Sheikh Highness vision is very clear, and it's driven from a very top level, that how he wants to run these countries, and that helps for any such organizations or anyone who actually really know in terms of what is required. Then it's very much easy for us to take the technology adoption properly, because my stake on this is more on, once you understand what you require, technology is there to help you, but don't expect that technology is the only driver to the success of your process, whether it's an ESG. And I think it was been very touch base by Lisa, that you need an HR data, you need anything else. And this is where, just to share our Emerald's experience, how we do it is, we have this software called TextFair. We have a brand name called TextFair, and under that TextFair, we actually add all these umbrellas into one. So any new department or any new process or any new compliance, any new law, any new protection, which whatever comes in, it's not applied to any specific information, is then applies to everything. And when you have this type of strategy, then it's just easy to nail it down to everybody to adopt, and then there is no choice left. If you go to that area of centralization, the information, which is, because then you have a challenges, which is another topic to discuss probably. But yeah, this is where I think it's very important we should know what we want.
Absolutely, Hussein, that's a fascinating vision, and new technologies goes hand in hand with humans as well, and technology will continue to revolutionize how business approach ESG in the future as well. So one last question before I move to the Q&A session. Would like to know from Knife. Knife, your quick comments on what is that biggest hurdle that you see in the corporate ESG adoption for any company? What's the hurdle that you see in that corporate adoption process? Is that data? Is that compliance, or is that something else?
So first, I would like to agree with Hussein on the importance of adopters of technology to know exactly what they want. It's a key point, and I have to fully agree. With regard to the biggest hurdle, is data collection. That's the biggest challenge, because you could be doing an activity or an initiative, but there are no data to collect from its implementation, nor are there any channels to take these data and put them in, gather them in meaningful way and analyzing them. So that's, to me, is the biggest challenge. And in major organizations with multiple geographical solutions, multiple geographical locations. Technology becomes paramount in streamlining the channels for reporting those data and collecting them, and then later do the rest of the required analysis and keeping track also of the adaptation and the record of historical data. So that's to me is the biggest challenge. The second challenge is the added value from adopting ESG in the organization. That is something is the role of any sustainability professional or lead to highlight, show the practical benefits to the organization from adopting sustainable practices. And Lisa touched on that when she mentioned requesting data from HR and other support functions, because once you show that ESG initiatives improve your retention of employees, it improve efficiency in power utilization and consumption. It have positive impact on the local environment and overall community, and the return on investment from these initiatives, then that will make that hurdle go away, rather than focusing on numbers only, carbon footprint and X amount of kilowatts that were saved or not utilized. I think these are the two hurdles: convincing the executive, the owners, the executives, the board, with these relatively new concepts in the region, and the data collection within the organization.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful point, Naif. Data collection and streamlining the data is something that we've seen lately that the businesses face trouble in. But of course, with the help of technology, as Hussein and Lisa mentioned, we can drive this process in a seamless way. So thank you so much for our incredible panelists for their expertise and valuable insights. I think today's discussion has made it clear that ESG success depends on a combination of leadership commitment, technological integration, and regulatory foresights, along with, yes, most important thing is the change management, for which we need patience. I think now we should move on to our Q&A segment. If you have any questions, please feel free to share them in the chat box or click the raise hand icon, and we'll unmute you and ask your questions directly. I think we have a couple of questions in the Q&A section with some insights. All right, so Saha says even if there is availability of technology and reliable, accurate data to back up, most of the management and governance people seem reluctant or just too lazy to incorporate the insights from that data into the ESG practices, since they still believe that there's a long way to go. So should we start by proposing small basic solutions at first, or is it setting big ambitious targets the way to go? Any of you want to touch base on that?
I mean, you should pick it up. Otherwise, we can pick. I'll pick it up. This question. I mean, I think I think you said Saha, right?
Sahas Sharma.
Shah Sharma. My advice would be, yes, you can start with a small ambition, as mentioned, but just make sure that the selection of the platform, or like one of the classic example is AppDAP here, we are talking. So your selection of a platform needs to be goal oriented, because if you start small and when you see the results and the impacts which comes out, and if your platform or your technology is not helping you, then then it will be very difficult for you to, cope up with the technology as well as the requirements of the business. Because yes, you are right. There are times where it's difficult to explain the benefits of ESG, and that's what Naif has also mentioned, that this is one of the challenge. But if you start showcasing the impact clearly to your management, whether you start small or big, that's not the problem, because that's your budgets and how the approach of your organization and how your approach of your leadership, which you can't start changing on a day one. I would not recommend. What I would recommend, just make sure that adoption of whatever tool or strategy or a policy you have used should be having a thoughtful goal, whether you use a consultancy or whatsoever. Pick it up that, and then start small rather than start small which has no goals, and it becomes more difficult. So that's my stake. Others can add up, guys.
Yeah, I just would like to make a small comment about at least in the Gulf region. I don't think we have too lazy or lazy governments. Uh, I tend to have a soft spot for the government officials here. I mean, the challenges are immense. Uh, um, with a very shifting and uh, ever-changing global uh, ch- challenges and uh, risks. So I think they have their hands full. But it's just, and this is what I've talked about before about ensuring that there are alignments. The priorities can be different, and activists or people interested in this arena should work on establishing alignment uh, of the priorities and with the government to ensure that it's more productive, I believe, than just putting a blank statement like that. So it's things are changing very fast in the region, and in fact, companies are in certain cases struggling to keep up with all the regulations and all the new policies that are coming in place. So we can use a little bit of laziness in here.
Understood, Naif. I think there's a question for Lisa uh, from Ashish Singh. So he says, shouldn't there be a mandatory level in Scope 3 reporting to set threshold? Lisa, you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, it's a short answer because absolutely there should be. But I think we're still in a discovery phase for some industries, and I think there's still some alignment that we need to have, both to ensure that we're not double counting, etc. So there are still some things that we need to sort of finalize in scope 3, but I think without a standardized language and unified measures and metrics, we're never going to be able to work against the same goal. So short answer, of course, there should be.
Right. And we have Tanveer Chaudhary with us, who asks, hi, what effect do you feel that the new USA administration will have upon the uptake of ESG?
I can take.
Everybody's, surrounding that question these days.
Well,
Uh,
I'll be happy. I'll be happy to kick off actually, because on a personal note, I think it's going to change nothing at all. I think there's a lot of smoke around what is going on that is disguising what we're going to end up with. With that said, I think ESG, as we've seen it right now, is transforming, and it should. And it has for the past 40, 50, 100 years. it's been around for a long time. But whether you want to call it corporate social responsibility, ESG, practical sustainability, the new term floating around out there, I'm going to go back to it literally doesn't really change anything about the long-term goal that we're working for. So I think that's a bit of my perspective. I don't think it's going to change that much. Maybe some terminology, but that's it.
I would actually agree with Lisa. I think the ESG ship has sailed. It is already in regulations and in laws, at least in Europe, and it's moving along everywhere. Yes, it can change names. I think maybe because of some influential people giving the targeting ESG by term. I think it might be useful to have a different call. One of the things I recently heard, sustainability being environment, social, and green economy instead of governance. So I agree with Lisa. I think the ship has sailed and it's already enshrined in laws across the globe.
Yeah, just to add from my side a little bit over there is because I mean if you look at GCC, we already at COP28 and we have already driving it towards it. So there's not major changes is going to happen from what you are if you have already started that drive. So rightly said, if you have not started, then you will find it a drastic difference. But if you have already started, then there will be a very slight change to it.
Absolutely, absolutely, Hussein. So one more question. I think Tapan Shah, he's mentioned it before as well. So he says the key challenge is the need for skilled talent. And EG expert comes at a high cost to ensure team sustainability. Even the consultants are not paid enough. So implementation is a challenge. Please give your inputs how to balance. Interesting question. Lisa, you want to take that?
Yeah, I will, because talent is really hard to come by, I think, in any position within a company, but definitely within sustainability at the moment. We face that as well when looking for people to join our team. I think what it comes down to is actually one of the major gaps that we have, and that comes back to awareness and knowledge. And that is something that will or has to be put on the ESG team as well. As I said in the beginning, if you do not have change agents and if you do not treat this as a transformation, you will struggle in the end. And that also means that you need to implement awareness and knowledge throughout your organization. I spent a fair deal of time speaking to my internal stakeholders, my external stakeholders, providing education, providing different formats of awareness, because I cannot get the buy-in or the engagement that I need from the whole organization to actually lift this as a whole. I'm more or less trying to actually put myself out of employment and just make it regular standard business for everybody to be dealing with sustainability, right? But yes, there is a skill gap out there as well. But if you turn your internal stakeholders with you, then you can actually get a long way. You don't need a ESG team of 50 people, but you need to educate the people around you.
I think that's a good point, Lisa. Hussein, any inputs on that? Or
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
Lisa
I
summarized
think
it
we
in
have. Yeah, we have actually said this in the earlier stage as well. And this is where hand in hand operations and technology comes in. So if your operations team and your leadership team and your team which you currently have, if they have that knowledge or if you embrace them with a little bit of, I mean, documents learning is available in the market. It's not that something certification is always required for do a small change in your organization. No. So I think if you start doing that journey first, then I'm sure tech partners and tech leaders will also help you, because most of my experience, you name any tech partner, they come up with their consultants as well. So this is where I think Naif also mentioned, we also mentioned, the first thing is what you want. Once you have that what you want in your mind, then you look at the second phase, the way Emerald does it, to find out who are the champions, who is the steering committee. You build that champions, and then after the champion, then you look at a technology partner who will just make your dream successful. And I think that's a journey which should be a balance. And then, of course, with these three steps, when you start seeing the impact, then there will be a no problem of the cost.
Absolutely. So, Naif, your comments, if you want to have, we want to have your inputs, how to balance this, because we've seen you, from an extensive HSE experience and then also leading sustainability initiatives at a multi, business conglomerate. Your inputs on the key challenge, which is the skill talent, and how do you balance that with the implementation?
Yes, it's an issue, finding the right talent and finding the support and budget to hire such talent. So we tend to learn internally and train internally and resort to technology. I think technology can close part of that gap. And as Hussein said, most of the technology companies that provide solutions come with their own consultants and support. So that's one way of tackling this issue.
Yes, of course. Technology comes with the hand holding and the training part as well for all of your internal stakeholders, as Lisa mentioned, and training all of your internal staff so that ESG should not be something that is alien for all of the internal, I would say, the employees, all of the employees of any corporate, structure, but rather than just a very regular term, and everybody should be, ready to embrace that. I would say with open arms and not see as a challenge and just see as a, from a perspective, that it's a burden of data and it's too much of work to be done with respect to data. Of course, technologies can help in streamlining the whole process. So I think, thank you, Tanveer. Thank you, Tapan, for your questions, and Tanveer and Tapan are thanking the panelists as well for the answers. So yes, I think that comes to an end. To our audience, I'd say thank you so much for joining us, the audience, and for your questions. And we hope that this session provided actionable insights. In fact, feel free to reach out to our speakers for further discussions, and let's continue driving sustainable transformations together. You can continue, you can connect with them on LinkedIn. They're very informative and, with some actionable posts and insights they keep on sharing. And also, we encourage you all to follow us on LinkedIn, stay updated on ESG trends, industry insights, and upcoming webinars. Once again, thank you so much for our esteemed panelists, Hussein, Naif, and Lisa, for your time, and for all of us, for all of you to joining us today. And have a good day. Thank you so much. And as they say, I would like to end it with a note, sustainability is not just about doing good, it's about doing business better. So that's something that I would like to put in here. And let's shape the future together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Vakar,
Thank you, Naif and Hussein. And looking forward to having you on our upcoming webinars as well. We'll drive this initiative in the region and we'll make corporate ESG adoption much easier. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.